Welcome everyone. I'm Lucas, co-founder and CEO of Widgetbook, and today I'd like to present to you how you can simplify your design systems and also your UI review processes with Widgetbook. I'd like to start my presentation with a quick question. Who in this audience already heard about Widgetbook? Nice, that's nearly everyone. And who already used Widgetbook? And who is using Widgetbook right now in a project? Okay, nice, amazing. Do you guys want to give the talk? Well, of course, I'm going to go ahead. For all of you guys that have not heard about Widgetbook yet, primarily we build an open source package and are very community focused. As you can see, we, for example, always organize the Fluttercon after party in Europe, in the city of Berlin, where our team that you can see here in the bottom right corner is located. And we are, of course, not only engaging with the community, not only hosting parties, we're also building something. And our open source package and also the cloud is recommended by Google. So we've been featured by Google's team as experts for both design systems and also designer collaboration. For example, they featured us at the Flutter Forward conference, which was the biggest Flutter conference that happened last year. We already working together with customers of ours for over 2 years. So at the Fluttercon conference that happened in July this year, we had 3 selected customers with us on stage. LeanCode is even sitting here with us today, an agency we're working together with already for over a year, which we always highly recommend, and then other enterprise customers of ours. And the great thing is that we just 3 weeks ago announced the open launch of Widgetbook Cloud, where we are able now to self-onboard the customers. And our customers have been reporting that not only did Widgetbook Cloud and the open source package help them to really ensure that no UI/UX bugs are shipped to their customers, but we are also saving every developer and every designer that is working with Widgetbook 20% of their time by using the open source and also Widgetbook Cloud. But enough of introduction. Let's get straight into what we're going to talk about today. So today we're going to learn, first of all, how you can use the open source Widgetbook to build your own custom design system, and how you can then use it to also very quickly test your widgets in different use cases. And then the second part of the talk is going to be about Widgetbook Cloud, where you're going to learn how you can host your Widgetbook and how you can then use golden tests and especially our review feature to simplify the design reviews with your entire team, mainly among designers and developers. First of all, let's start with a little story. When the app development process happens, usually where it starts is you have a designer that needs to work together with a client. So a client has an idea, and the designer, first of all, needs to bring that idea to life. Usually, the designer has a couple iterations over some quick design prototypes with the client until the client is finally happy. Then the designer can actually go to work. And what the designer is then usually doing is building a design system if your app should stay around for more than 6 months. And we can today very easily build a design system in a tool like Figma. What is then quite challenging is we as developers also want to do the same for our code base. We want to build our own Flutter design system. What companies did a lot in the past is they built something that they called, for example, a gallery app or their own component library where they just cataloged all of their reusable components. This process was quite cumbersome because at some point it was quite difficult to maintain it. In the beginning it worked great, but maintaining it over time is really not so easy, and it's always limited also in features. So we, for example, always lacked the chance to then also quickly verify the widgets in all of the different configurations that we have. And then we sat down with our team and wanted to solve it, and we built the open source Widgetbook. Widgetbook, we also label it as such, is a storybook solution for Flutter. So for all of you who are coming from a web development background, similar to our team, probably used Storybook.js in the past. And Storybook.js is really a great tool because it allows you to build all of your widgets in isolation and then have a great overview of all of those different widgets that you were using in your app. And when we switched to Flutter, there was no Storybook, so we built it ourselves. And Widgetbook is quite easy to set up. So Widgetbook always works as a separate app in your Flutter project, and it works best in a mono-repo structure. With the mono-repo structure, for all of you who are not too familiar with the term, it basically means you have your main app, and in your main app you have a new package that you call, for example, UI library, or you can also just straight call it Widgetbook, where you have all of your reusable components. And you are then using Widgetbook as a separate app, and to use the open source Widgetbook, you only need 3 dependencies in your code. So you need our Widgetbook annotation, you need the Widgetbook main package, and then you need also the Widgetbook generator to help you set up Widgetbook. Once you did that, it's time for you to catalog your first widget, and you can use that by using our add-use-case annotation. And the use case annotation comes with 2 required parameters. One is name, the other is type. So you always name your use case. If you have just one use case, as in this example, you just call it default. And the type is just the widget that you'd like to return, in this case, app bar. And then you are providing a method for the use case. In our case, we just say, okay, it's the app bar use case. We need the context, and then we're returning the app bar. And what is really important for Widgetbook, you always need to mock the required parameters of your widgets. In our case, with the app bar, the required parameter is just a title. So we provide the string, groceries app, and that's all we got to do. Afterwards, it's time to create the structure of the Widgetbook, and you can do it with our app annotation. And just in this new package that we just created, our Widgetbook package, we go in the main file, in the main.dart file, and in there we're writing add widgetbook.app, and we have the class of our Widgetbook app, and in there we are just returning our Widgetbook, and here you can choose what theme your app depends on. If your app depends on a material theme, you write widgetbook.material. It depends on Cupertino, you write widgetbook.cupertino, but you can also use it in with a custom theme. And that's it. Afterwards, you just use the build runner to initially create your Widgetbook, and later on we're going to use the Widgetbook. We're going to use the build runner to always maintain the Widgetbook also automatically for you. And then it's already time to run all of our favorite Flutter commands, Flutter run, and afterwards we can see it in action. And what you can then see is you get an overview on the left side of all of the different widgets that you're using in your app, starting with small components like atoms, so for example just an app bar, just an app icon, or a badge. But you can go in the end up to cataloging more complex widgets like molecules, or also even entire screens and pages. And you can then also define multiple use cases of your widgets, in the end multiple states. So in our basket screen example here, we have one use case empty, another use case filled. And all of the widgets that you're cataloging then are in the end interactive. So it's not a PNG file. You can really interact with the widgets and therefore not only see how it looks, but also feel how it looks. And that's in the end already how you can build your own design system with Widgetbook. In the next part, we're going to cover how you can quickly test your widgets in different use cases, both with add-ons and also with knobs. Why do we even want to do it? Why isn't it enough to just catalog all of our widgets? Because nowadays our apps need to support multiple settings. And here again, to draw the comparison to Figma, it's quite easy for designers to just copy-paste what they already did in the design. And then, we have the challenge as developers to comply with it, and in the end to build our apps across different languages, different themes, different devices, different text scale factors. Accessibility is also important, so there's a lot to test. And that can actually takes some time, and I, in the end, don't want you to turn into skeletons. I want to save you with that, and that's why we have Widgetbook to give you some superpowers, and that's how it works. So first of all, we have our add-ons. The add-ons allow you to preview your widgets in different global properties. With global properties, what I mean is that you can very easily test your widgets, for example, across different device sizes, different themes, different languages, different textual factors, all of these things that are not widget specific. And to give you one example, you can test your widgets across multiple themes. And you can just use the material theme add-on where you're in the end defining what's the theme that you want to use. In our case, we wanted to use light and dark mode, and so we provide first of all the name for light, and then we just pass the theme data in it. We do the same for dark, and afterwards we can already see in action. And then you can see that it's really easy to, on the right side, control the add-ons to test our widgets in light and dark mode. We can do the same for different device sizes. So we can very quickly test our widgets across every mobile device, iPhones, Android phones, iPads. You can also test them across different desktop screens. We have some users that even do it for smartwatches. So the sky is the limit here with the devices. Same for languages. We can easily test them in English, German, Polish, French, basically whatever language you and the users care about. Then we also have the chance with the knobs to test widget-specific properties. And this is really powerful, and that's something that we're going to touch later as well, because we can dynamically override all of those properties. And in our case, when we have the app bar here, for example, when you remember again how we started with it, we gave it a fixed string, groceries app, but in this case, we can now, with the knobs, decide no, it can dynamically be overwritten. We just give it an initial value, groceries app, because we can also write context.knobs.string, then we provide a label, title, and then we give it the initial value. And afterwards, when we see it in action now, we can dynamically override it. And in the end, that's only one knob that I just showed here. So it's all documented under docs.widgetbook.io. There's every data type that you can possibly use is supported by Widgetbook. So our customers, for example, define themselves knobs to very easily switch between colors or switch between different states in like a drop-down menu. So all of that is something that you can do. And to get more information about the free-to-use Widgetbook open source package, you can just check out our docs. So if you go to docs.widgetbook.io, you can get started with it. But as I mentioned, there was only the first part of the talk. The second part is now going to be about simplifying your UI reviews with your entire team. And here, I would like to see a quick show of hands who in this room already experienced issues in designer-developer collaboration. Who can relate with, I shipped something, and then the designer saw it and was like, okay, no, that's really not what I wanted to have. And it's quite a common problem that I and my team face ourselves before, and we really wanted to solve it for the Flutter community. And here you can see the usual designer-developer workflow that we had, but also most of our customers have, where it goes that, first of all, you're creating the design, usually in Figma. Then you hand it over. In the past, you used tools like Zeppelin for it. Now, fortunately, Figma evolved. You have the dev mode in Figma, which can be quite pricey, depending on your organization, but it's working quite well to hand over the design to the developer. We then have to implement it. We are creating a pull request, and then there's a code review happening. Let's assume the code review works really well, everything is fine. We can merge it, it goes to QA, and then QA can, if it works, say, okay, no issues, and then we can deploy it to production. It's going to be released to the customer, and hopefully everything works well. This process is super well if you, in the end, want to detect if there's any bug in the code. So when a bug in the code is detected, it's quite easy to solve it via your favorite Git provider, for example, via GitHub. A developer that does the review finds a bug in the code, and it can be fixed by the developer who created the pull request. Easy. Same goes for the quality assurance part. So when the QA tester finds a bug, no worries. There are established processes how you can then solve it as a developer, and the iteration starts again until it's being shipped to customers. What is really cumbersome, though, is if you have a design issue, a UI/UX issue. That's something that's usually not spotted. So if you don't have a design review, usually you have bad UI/UX, and that can ultimately lead to churning customers. And the issue is that after the implementation, if you don't have a designer review what you build, it can result in a release where you have a UI/UX bug, because the QA tester is usually someone who is not really responsible in making sure that what you initially designed in Figma is actually tested. I mean, I see a lot of you nodding here, so it's a common problem that we also had. And what's usually happening then is the customer is upset, and something isn't working in the app, and the developer is the one that first of all gets the blame because he implemented it, or she. The developer then tries to involve the designer in the process. But the designer really has a hard time reviewing the design, because the designer is like, okay, I don't really know what exactly needs to be reviewed. I also don't know how to create all those testing scenarios. And I also don't know how to provide precise feedback then to the developer. And then the developer initially, first of all, really struggles, because what is happening then, the team is trying to set up a process for it. And the developer struggles, first of all, to really tell the designer what you need to review. What is usually happening then is the developer pushes a test app to the designer. And the designer then all of a sudden has this entire APK on their phone. And the developer should, in the end, tell the designer, hey, that's what you need to review. But the developer often doesn't really know what are all the visual changes that just happened. And also how to share that easily with the designer. So what's happening is the designer gets the entire APK on the phone, navigates to the entire app. The designer has to create all those testing scenarios. For example, needs to test login that worked, login that doesn't work, all of that on the phone. And then on some other screen, the designer is then like, hey, I designed it initially, so I need to check it as well, how it works to the existing implementation. So the designer opens Figma, needs to navigate the entire Figma file to finally find what's off. And then when the designer finds, okay, that really doesn't work here, how do you provide feedback then? And usually what's happening is the designer takes screenshots in the app, sends those screenshots via Slack, for example, to the team, scribbles some notes and comments to it, and shoves it back to the developer. And we as developers are then like, yeah, okay, what should I really do with this feedback now? And this entire loop just starts all over again. And as you can see, what's the result is we have a quite unstructured designer-developer workflow. And because it's unstructured, we are still not safe that no UI/UX issues make it to the customer. And then the customer is unhappy, and in the end, designer, developer are unhappy, so this entire process is really a huge mess. And that's why we built Widgetbook-Cloud. We give you a structured process to simplify your UI reviews. And let me show you how it works with an example here. This is here in the end the designer developer workflow that we are getting at with the Widgetbook-Cloud. We still have the designer that designs initially. We still have the developer that implements. But what we do then is we have still the developer review with your pull request, but in this review process, we are already including the designer. So what we are doing, and we're going to find out how it works later, we are automatically verifying your pull request for any visual changes. So you can imagine it works very similar to GitHub, where GitHub already shows you what lines of code changed, and we with Widgetbook show you exactly what are all the visual changes that you have, and let you compare that also to the Figma design. And then you can also easily give feedback there and have a structured review process. And afterwards, it gets to QA. And because you basically didn't go past QA, you didn't ship it to the customer yet, it's also super easy right now to iterate on that process. So right now you can still iterate fast and not so costly. And that's why if you're including the designers very early in that process, and the designer can review and approve it, first of all, the team is more happy because the team is more aligned, and then in the end the customer is also happy because the user experience in the end is as great as it should be. And with that, I already shared that in the beginning, our customers have announced that they have been saving up to 20% of their time with Widgetbook Cloud, which makes me also pretty happy. And let me now give you an example of how you can use it. So first of all, if you implemented a new primary button or changed the primary button, you just commit the changes to your repository from your favorite IDE. In this case, I used VS Code here. Once you did that, you can use our Widgetbook integration that we have with GitHub, where you can, in the end, find one Widgetbook build for each and every commit that you pushed to your repository, and you can then see that Widgetbook build up there on Widgetbook Cloud. And you can then easily share that with your entire team and have everyone of your team with the ability to very easily test all of those different widgets that you have in your Widgetbook. But that's not all, because that is basically only allowing you to host your entire Widgetbook there. But in the end, and there was also initially the issue when we're pushing the entire app to developers, to designers or QA testers, the question is always, what do they really need to review? They don't need to review the entire app. They really only need to review what's new, so what changed. And that's what we're doing with Widgetbook Cloud, and especially with the review feature. So we are now changing a button here. So the button was fully round. Now we change the border radius to none, so it's going to be very edgy now. And we are committing the change. We're creating a new branch here. And when we're committing that new build, we of course again have the chance to check it out. So we change the branch and can first of all just check the entire Widgetbook again. And can just make sure, okay, it's included in that build here. But that is something that can work quite well for developers because we, again, here just know, okay, that button changed. But for our team, it would be amazing now to really see exactly what changed. And as I mentioned before, it works very similar to a GitHub pull request, where in GitHub you can already see exactly which lines of code were changed. But what is missing is what changed visually. And that is something that we can now do with our review feature. So we are creating a new pull request. And the moment we are creating that pull request, Widgetbook Cloud automatically verifies for you what changed visually in your code. And we then have a deeper integration with your Git providers, for example, GitHub, where you can then see a Widgetbook review for each and every GitHub pull request. And you can then get a list of all of those changes that you can see. And we don't even only need get a list of the changes in one configuration. We get them for each and every configuration that we care about. So you as a user can configure in Widgetbook itself what are the configurations that you care about. So which are the add-ons, which are the knobs that you care about. For example, what we did here is we defined, okay, we care about languages. So we want to make sure all of our widgets are properly implemented for English and German, and are properly implemented for light and dark mode. And what we can then see here is that because we changed the primary button, not only the button changed, but the basket screen changed, and in 2 use cases. And that is automatically being shown by us on Widgetbook Cloud. And to get into more detail here with that feature, you have the chance to, for each and every widget that changed, toggle a button to see exactly highlighted what changed. Because if you just have that small button component, quite easy to spot the changes. I don't even need my glasses for that. But if you have the entire screen, might be a bit difficult to see exactly what changed, because maybe something else was changed, and then the highlight button comes in quite handy. On top of that, we also always have the chance to not only see my Flutter widget in the old version, on the left side, so the base build, and on the right side, the head build. We also have the chance to see how does my Flutter widget look next to the Figma design. And exactly with that feature, designers now have the chance to really see, okay, what did we design, what did the developers implement? And good thing for all the developers in this room, designers then often also understand, hey, the design initially wasn't really complete often. So it didn't cover every use case. And that is something that can really help with developer-designer alignment. And for all of you that are currently wondering, okay, how does this work? What we're doing under the hood is we're taking snapshots or screenshots of each and every Widgetbook use case that you catalog in the Widgetbook. And whenever you're pushing a new commit to your repository, we host the Widgetbook build on Widgetbook Cloud, and that's exactly where we are doing all of those snapshots. And then the moment you're creating a pull request, that's the moment where we have a base build and a head build. And that's the moment where we're then running UI regression tests, or in Flutter, also referred to as golden tests. And that's what we're then using to verify for you, okay, what are all the changes in all the different configurations? And the Figma link happens for you in the code. So as a developer, you always have the chance to set the Figma link just in your favorite IDE for your Widgetbook use case. And that's in the end how you can use Widgetbook Cloud to share your widgets with your team by hosting Widgetbook builds. And you can then also use it to detect all your UI changes by automating golden tests. And you can then review all of your UI changes with a structured review process. And in the end, that allows you to keep your design and code in sync. And developers and designers can live happily ever after. And if you like to, of course, as I mentioned before, the open source package is already available for free for everyone under docs.widgetbook.io. Widgetbook Cloud is also available for free, so you can get started with a free plan. It's a usage limit. Once you hit it, then you can commit to a paid plan. If you have any questions whatsoever, I'm really happy to take them. We also have a booth, so if you want to have a more custom demo as well, or any questions later as well, happy to discuss it. We also have some swag at the booth. Thanks for your attention.